thanks for joining today.
Of course.
Nice to see you. So I'm AJ, the head of Enablement with Yoodli. We're here with Dave Mattson, and so excited to be partnered with our AI roleplay technology. But Dave, before we get into that, you joined with David Sandler in, I believe, 1988.
Yeah.
Curious, like, what was your experience at that time? What compelled you to work with him? What made the Sandler system so different in your estimation?
Well, I actually was one of those hostages that was sent to a boot camp by my employer, actually. So it wasn't like I woke up one day and said, oh my gosh, I want to go to a Sandler program. I was sent. I was almost a hostage, didn't want to necessarily be there. But when I got there, I realized it was based on psychology, and I didn't have to be somebody that I wasn't, right? So that really made me very comfortable. But as you start to dig down through it, a couple things appealed to me. One was based on psychology, so it was easy. I think people, buy from people, and they buy from people who they trust, so that was easy. I didn't have to be that, what they perceive as a salesperson, the push, be somebody that you're not. You could be you, because Sandler gave you the sheet music, and you could apply your own personality in your own situation, which I like, that flexibility. But as I really got into Sandler, the magic for me was techniques by themselves are short-lived. Right? So if you don't have the mindset of why I'm doing that and then behave properly so it becomes muscle memory, the techniques go up and then right back down, right? So we all get excited if we went to, let's say, a workshop. Oh, that's changed my life. Oh, I'm going to do this. And that's all true for about 30 days. Yeah. It's like everyone goes to the gym for 30 days. That's right. And then it's over, or dieting. Yeah. And so we had the same problem in really sales training, leadership training. But David broke the code. David broke the code and said, look, if you're going to actually increase performance and then maintain performance, you've got to have a healthy balance between that technique, the attitude, and the behavior. And that made sense to me because it was always like I was starting over all the time, but I was only focused on the technique part, right? Yeah. And then the other thing that I enjoyed was it wasn't a one and done. It was reinforcement. Because if you really think about what we go through as leaders or as salespeople, we're not focused on the whole thing at once. We're like, I'm really worried about if I was a salesman. I'm really worried about how to get, buyers, prospects. How do I do that? I'm not really worried about how to do presentations. I don't have any clients. So I have the opportunity to focus on each part of my business as I'm experiencing it, and as I realize that I've got some deficiencies. So that was the magic for me, because I would have the ability to kind of grow and go back and get reinforced as I was ready, right, to receive it, because I was at that part of my growth stage or my learning curve. And I liked that. I probably went to the same workshops 10 or 12 times, and not because, I'm a slow learner, which may be true, but it was really because I wasn't ready to hear the back end of it yet.
That's right.
And that's really what did it for me when I was attracted to Sandler initially.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's such an important point. You mentioned you weren't ready to hear the back end of that yet, which leads to the next question, which is that David Sandler wrote a book, You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. I love that. I had the experience of being on stage at the summit last year, telling my story about how I tried to learn how to swim from reading a book. Right. People laughed, but that was my real solution to learning how to swim as an adult. It wasn't until I got in the pool every day at 5:30 in the morning, this comes after that. I actually have to get comfortable putting my face in the water before I can do the stroke. And so that almost felt like, at the time, I'm sure for the training industry, it almost felt like, I don't want to call it an attack, but this was something that was revolutionary. And so I guess the question would, when David wrote that book, what do you feel like he was reacting to that was happening in training at the time?
Well, I think David was really trying to say it's experiential learning. Yeah. You had to be in it. You can read a book about golfing as an example. Doesn't mean you're going to be a great golfer. You've got to go out and try. You've got to go out and fail. You've got to go and figure out what went right, what went wrong. And in addition, from a technique perspective, like what's going on in your head. So David really was saying, look, you can read books all you want, but you're going to have to go do it. You have to practice. And it's a profession. This is not a one and done thing, right? Sales is kind of a unique gig where people like, oh, I've got it down now. I've got 30 years experience. I don't have to learn anymore. And if you think about us against any other profession, it's insane. That's right. Like I want my doctor to continue to reinforce themselves and get better and better. Every sports person does. Yeah. And if you think about the athletes coming out of college as an example, Some of it's 3 times harder in professional sports, right? Because we do a lot of coaching. And the ones who think they've got it because they're at the top of their game and stop learning, stop pushing, they're out of professional sports within a year.
Right.
It's a one and done.
Yep.
Right? So I think you have to have that mindset of, I'm looking for areas that I can improve upon. And I'm going to embrace that versus that makes me uncomfortable, so I don't want to do it. And I think what the bike analogy was, it's okay. You're going to skin your knee. Yep. It's okay. It's just part of learning. Just embrace it because it becomes part of your DNA, muscle memory. That's really, I believe, what he was saying.
I love that. I love that. And, I think you know my story. I've been in sales for 30 years myself, starting at Best Buy, selling computer printers. And they teach you stuff like, can I get your shopping cart? Why don't you sign at the bottom of the performance service plan? They teach you techniques, even when you have your first job in high school when you're working at Best Buy. But role play had been such a big part of my career in sales. And it's something I've seen sadly go away over the last few years with a lot of the companies I work with. And even when I'm talking to someone about Yoodli, I'll say, do you expect a professional athlete, a baseball player, to go to the batting cages once and then they never go back again? And it finally clicks for them. Like, it's such an interesting idea that in sales, not enough people treat it like a craft where you can be learning and getting better at it every day. And that's why it's one of the reasons I love the Sandler system. And I think, to your point about reinforcement and practice, one of the things we like to talk about, and I know Sandler does as well, is do you really want your sales reps practicing on their live leads?
All right.
Like, these are very valuable opportunities, and you shouldn't have your sales reps cutting their teeth on them. So I'd love to hear your own take on the importance of practice and reinforcement as part of the Sandler system. I've heard stories about people listening to tapes in their car on the way to meetings of David Sandler. So yeah.
Well, let's step back and even talk about what you said initially, which was just role play. Yeah. Role play's got a bad rap. Right? If you really think about it, role play was used as a weapon. And it was, not intentionally. First of all, most leaders don't know how to role play, right? And no fault of their own, but they just don't know how to do it. And so the rep then feels like, well, where am I going? I can't role play an hour call. That's really not how it works. You've got to break these pieces down, right? And then how many names have you heard for role play? Modeling, practice. I mean, we come up with all these names because we're hiding from the fact that we've got to do this. When we have new people coming into our organization, we role play 3 times a week, and people are really afraid. They're afraid because of where they're coming from. But when they realize it's a safe environment and actually everyone's in it and everyone can be vulnerable because we're all learning, and you actually see improvement throughout those sessions, it's a game changer, and they're all in. But it's hard to transform people into that mindset, to your point. It's really hard. Now, reinforcement in general, I think reinforcement, unfortunately, for a lot of organizations is let's check the box. Like, we did training last year. Oh, yeah, we did self-improvement last year. I remember that. We would check the box. But that's not how it works in the real life, in the real world. I don't tell my children, I've got 5 kids, I don't tell them to do something once and expect them that, it becomes muscle memory. That's not how it works. So I think sales in general, even sales leaders, we haven't taken what works in our personal lives, all the things that we do with our children, all the things that we do with sports, and apply it to sales, right? So to your point, professional sports, everyone goes to spring training. Everyone goes back to the basics. Right? Everyone goes back to the basics. I just watched some playoffs before the Super Bowl this year. And what they said was they were out-practiced. That's why they lost the game in the playoffs. I'm like, wow. They took it for granted. They thought they were, on the top of the game. They didn't practice the nuances of playing in the cold, and they got defeated. And they shouldn't have been. And the announcer's like, well, they just got out-practiced. And that, to me, is something that you can control. I can't control what you're going to say. I can't control what's in the environment, but I can control me. And I think that's really what reinforcement and role play does. It makes me as best as I can be, so I also can pivot. Because when you're role playing, when you get better, you feel uncomfortable in the beginning. I get it. But your confidence and conviction is growing each and every time. So when it is time, I'm ready. I'm okay. It may not go perfect, but I'm a lot better than what I was, and I'll realize where my deficiencies were, and the next time I'm going to attack that.
Yeah.
So I think that's really where we're.
Yeah, that's exactly. And you mentioned college athletes. You hear so many stories of naturally talented college athletes. They plateau.
Yeah.
Because they think they don't need to practice.
That's right.
And then there's the second or third tier player that's in the gym practicing after the games, before the games, and they're the ones that have the longer careers.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can pick Brady, regardless if you like Brady or not.
Yeah.
I mean, he shouldn't have been who he was. He outworked people.
Right.
He wasn't as talented as maybe, right? Probably almost didn't get drafted. But his work ethic, his deliberate practice in certain areas, in that focus is really what did it. And that separated him from the rest. And then the talent caught up, right?
Yeah.
The mindset was there first.
That's right.
The practice and role play, his practice, that's really what caught up. And people don't really, oh, he was a natural talent. Was he? Was Michael Jordan really that natural? No, they worked their butts off to do that.
That's right. That's right.
And most people don't want to put in the time.
Well, yeah. Yeah. And which brings me to my next point, which is I think there's such a misnomer, specifically in the profession of sales. He's a born salesman.
Right.
He was born to do this.
Right.
Oh, this guy was made for sales. And I think it's a quote of yours, is salespeople aren't born, they're made.
They're made.
And I'd love to hear, I don't want to double down too much on the sports analogy, but I think it's such a misnomer about sales. I could never do that. The reality is you probably could.
You can. Sometimes I think it's an easy way out. Oh, that's not my personality type. I've taken a ton of personality profiles. I shouldn't be here. Doesn't mean I can't do it. I'm a bit introverted. Doesn't mean I can't do it. It means it takes more energy and it takes more work. So I can just say, oh, that's not for me. I think you're copping out in your family, you're copping out in your company, and basically yourself. I think you can just step it up. It takes work. Now, if it's not in your natural comfort zone, that means you have to practice more than maybe that somebody that just loves to talk, right? So it just takes more practice, which is really where, AI, I think, kicks in, because it can accelerate my learning curve, to be honest. I could go out there in front of live prospects and buyers, as you say, but how many can I talk to in a day? And am I actually going to continue that? Because if I'm rejected, let's say the first 10 times, how many people will continue down that path?
Yeah.
They're not going to do it.
Right.
And so it's almost like you're starting over all the time. But I think with AI role play, I'm condensing my learning curve, and I'm getting all that feedback right there when I remember, not, hey, I think I did this 2 weeks ago. That's the problem when managers are debriefing and try to role play. First of all, it's fantasy. What we're role playing actually didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's not really what happened. And the other thing it is, we're role playing the wrong stuff. So I think if that ability to take what that industry or company is doing with your product and the methodology in one package is awesome.
Yeah.
Really.
Thank
It's
you.
almost, if you think about, you do sport. I'm practicing on the course I'm going to play next week, right? With the clubs I'm playing with. So then when you're doing it, you've already done it. Like, you're in it.
Yeah.
Versus, I practice over the miniature putt-putt over here thing, and then I'm wondering why it's not working over here.
Yeah.
And so I think that transformation has been unbelievable with you.
I love hearing about that. I want to dive into that a little further because I think about F1 racers. F1's very big right now, and they're sitting in their simulators sometimes with blindfolds on just to hear the sounds of the engine, and it's incredible. And to your point, I think in my career I've done live role play so many times. You put me in front of a room of my peers to talk about my own product, I'm really nervous because there's a lot of people in the room that know more than me.
That's right.
And so I'll talk to customers all day, but that can be really nerve-wracking. The feedback's not objective. My manager may be having a bad Friday, or he may just really love me, and so he's automatically going to give me an 8 out of 10. But I think one of the biggest gaps, beyond the fact that folks don't have enough time to do it, is that a lot of folks role-playing don't know how to act like a buyer. And so I really appreciate your perspective on that. So I think the final question is, understanding that the analogy with sports, understanding how important practice is. Sales is a craft that you can get better at. If you're not practicing, you will fall behind. What do you think is the importance of infusing a role-play platform with the Sandler system? And then I guess the follow-up to that is, what are the outcomes that you think customers can hope to achieve, or that franchisees and folks in the enterprise side have been seeing?
Well, even if I step back for a second, I mean, if you think about role play with a salesperson and a leader, that's high risk. Let's be honest. Most managers don't know how to role play and don't want to put themselves into position to look like they don't know what they're doing in front of their sales force.
Yeah, right.
I mean, so they don't do it.
Yeah.
So if I'm not good at it, I don't want to embarrass myself, I'm not going to do it. Now, if I'm a rep and you're my manager, I don't want to role play with you.
Yeah.
Because I already told you I could do it in the interview. You're about to find out that when I said I was a cold calling machine, that I didn't even know what I'm doing. That's high risk.
Right.
So, that's high risk. Now, if to your question specifically, how do you take, the role play, the methodology in the industry and product knowledge? I think role playing generically is tough. Most people can't transfer a generic role play to what they do day in and day out. Mm-hmm. They just can't do it, right? So it's like medical school. Why do you go to medical school, but then you spend 2 years in the hospital? Because you're applying what you've learned here. And then that's really where it happens. It mm-hmm. doesn't happen over here. So when you have the ability to take the company knowledge, the product knowledge, industry knowledge, and methodology together, that's magical, because there has been a huge gap since I've been in the industry. You can teach techniques, training, methodology. Mm-hmm. If you're not putting it into their product suite, learners, salespeople cannot make that transition, or very few can. But if you say, this is how it works with this product, with this buyer, with this industry, they're like, oh, okay, got it. I mean, I'm amazed how many people are awesome at Sandler at one company, then they go to a different company, different product, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. Because they've memorized that scenario. It's not the methodology, not the use case specifically, right? So what it does is, how do I use this methodology with that product, with that buyer? What am I going to do? And I can take every aspect of Sandler as an example and say, this is how you're going to use it in this scenario, which, by the way, is different when you have a committee. Mm-hmm. And those nuances, I think, when people get to experience it, right? I think that's awesome. Think about a new product, for instance. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest issues that most sales leaders are saying, hey, I want upsell, cross-sell. Why doesn't it happen? That has been on the top 3 list since I've been in the industry. Why isn't it happening? Because I don't know how to talk about that product with that buyer. Mm-hmm. I've got a great relationship over here with this group. And if I go over there and I'm talking about stuff that I don't own, like I don't own it, then I could be risking this. So I'm not going to do it. I don't want to risk my existing business by trying to expand in a different group over here, because there's just too many unknowns for me. Mm-hmm. But if I could role play, if I could practice, now I've got that confidence and conviction. And I think leaders would find that the upsell, cross-sell would be a lot easier, right? Because we're practicing over here in real drills versus here's your battle card to go upsell, cross-sell, go to it. Okay, well, that hasn't worked in 40 years. Yeah. It really hasn't worked. Right. But to your point, the simulation, the F1, now I'm in it. Now I'm in that call with that person you want me to call on, talking about it, this product or service. That's the confidence and conviction, because I'm not going to embarrass myself as a salesperson. I mean, it always boils down to that, to be honest, right? But if you want to have a faster pace to higher commissions and hitting your numbers, I think you have to get to a point where you're integrating products, industry, playing real life objections that you would say as a buyer, mm-hmm. right? Yeah. So when you say it a couple different times and you're giving me, hey, what about XYZ competitor? How do you compare? I'm ready. Yeah. Like, I'm ready. And I think that's, for the very first time, what you guys have brought to the industry is the ability to do what we've done in other parts of our world very successfully to our industry. Mm. And that's never happened before. We just never were able to do it. Yeah. Dave, you guys have done it. Yeah. Well, do we have time for one more question? Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So I had the pleasure of working with the Sandler home office team, mm-hmm. probably for 6 months. Okay. Sandler's been very, very diligent about their selection here, because whatever AI role play vendor you choose mm-hmm. is saying a lot about the Sandler name. The Sandler name is so well respected. It represents our brand. Absolutely, mm-hmm. yeah. And so I think the question is, knowing that there were a lot of different
vendors in this space, and we worked very closely with your team to show how the Sandler methodology works in Yoodli. I'd love to hear your perspective on why you feel Sandler felt Yoodli was the best choice.
Well, I mean, I think it boils down to a couple of things. First of all, you've got to like and respect the people you're in business with, right? So technology is fine, but at the end of the day, good people with the right vision, going in the right direction, that's great. But I also think that if you really think about, we could do AI role play anywhere. I mean, it's everywhere. The ability to do what you guys have done, which is to integrate the product and the methodology on top of each other, I think that's the game changer, really. At the end of the day, how do you accelerate the learning of those who are going through Sandler? That's what it is. I mean, leaders want to know, are my people using Sandler? Are they using it? Are they any good at it? Am I getting a return on investment? So what do? You've got leading indicators and lagging indicators, right? I can only tell from a lagging indicator, looks like my sales are going up. Looks like I've got more appointments. That's great. But depending on how your sales cycle works, that could be down the road.
Yeah.
So then you say, okay, well, what about all the behaviors that you need to do? If you're doing all these behaviors, because we're big on the behavior at Sandler, if you're doing all the behaviors, this will happen. Well, there's a big space between those two things.
Right.
So what you've brought to the table is, hey, let's practice, let us show you, right, and demonstrate that the skills and the talk tracks and everything that's necessary between the behavior and the lagging indicator of a sale, we now can dissect. We can help them, and so now we know what's going on all the way through. It used to be just an X-ray. What you guys have brought to the table is, now it's an MRI.
Yeah.
Now I get to see everything. And I think that's really the magic. That's really what was a game changer, because that never existed.
Thanks, Dave. One of my customers actually said, it takes us 9 months to identify if a sales rep's not going to be successful at this company. And that costs us about $2 million a year, just to put dollars and cents in it. And he said, Yoodli is now allowing us to identify those reps a lot earlier to help close their skill gaps and, if needed, help maybe find a better place for them.
Well, if you think about how many companies measure time to hire to time to profitability or first sale.
Right.
Right? You got to wait for that. So if you really want to condense that, I don't have to wait for that. If you're not going to step up as an individual producer and role play our products with the methodology, why are you here? Why are you here? Because what you've said to us is, you're not going to fit into our culture. You're not going to embrace what it takes to succeed. So I don't really have to wait for that, right? Because everybody in an interview is an absolute movie star,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So how do we figure that out? We would do it on the onboarding. Personally, I think they should be doing it on an interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do a couple of role plays before we even hire you.
Right.
Right? Because now I get to see, how do you really act? I can say I'm a great golfer until you take me golfing. Then I'm kind of exposed.
Yeah.
And that's really what you've done. You've taken the future and brought it right into the present before either maybe you're on my payroll, or I can condense that onboarding process, as you said. And allow me, to be fair, allow me as a leader to coach you in the right areas.
That's right.
Right? Like pinpoint coaching. Managers have a time compression problem. There's not a lot of time for us. I've never been trained how to be a great manager. You're giving me the tools to laser guide my conversation. That's magical.
Yeah.
That's special.
I love that. Dave, thanks so much.
Okay, enjoy the relationship.
Yeah.